Next session, we'll be focusing on Destiny, which is a database-assisted therapy decision support system. We have Dr. Arnfin Bergmann, CEO NeuroTransData, GmbH, with us. Please give him a big round of applause. He'll talk to us more about this system. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for the award I got this morning. It's not just me, it's, of course, we are a team of a lot of people. And to the guy, I don't know where he's, we are doing a lot of AI, but AI is not 100%. Like human beings are not 100%. You know, first you have to compare this to the decisions of doctors. Not in an ideal world where you have 100%. But I go through my slides. We are doing this in our offices. First, a little bit of history. What do? We are doctors. I'm a neurologist, I'm a psychiatrist, and psychotherapist. You know, that's why I know what I am talking about. I have patients still now, but I have also a training in machine learning. Not a lot, just to get acquainted with these sections, with this mathematics, with the computer scientists. Otherwise, they tell you stories and they don't know what they are dealing with. We were founded in 2008, so we are 11 years old. It's a network of about 70 offices in Germany. Large offices, we have over 150 doctors. It's all over Germany. We have 4 districts, as you can see here. We have standardized, fully digital and iOS certificated office-based EMR system, centralized in a cloud, in a German cloud. You know, in Germany it's very strict. We have to follow rules. This is till 11 years. We have cooperations, of course, with universities, not just office-based. We are cooperating with Munich, Essen, Nuremberg, also Switzerland, and for our computer science with Stanford in the US. It's approved by Ethical Committee of Bavarian and other committees, because it has to be ethical. Not just it has to function, not just GDPR, it has to be ethical what you are doing. To look at our numbers, we have a lot of patients. We have about 600,000 patients a year over all indications, neurology and psychiatry. Our deepest and the most depth database is multiple sclerosis. We have over 25,000 patients. Looking there at least on average 8.7 years, and we see them about 4 to 5 times a year. We have dementia, we have epilepsy, we have depression, schizophrenia, Parkinson's disorder, and since beginning of this year we have migraine. There we have at the moment 5,000 patients in our database. So we have a lot. Why can we do this? All the members had to fulfill some criteria. You have to be certified according to ISO standards. I don't know if this is the European standard. You have to be authorized to postgraduate medical education, because ISO is just that you're organized. The other thing is whether you're a good doctor. So we are able to train doctors in psychiatry and neurology. We have an integrated continuous training for our doctors and nurses, because we have to make clear that they are all on the same level. So you have to do this on your own. Utilization of an entity database and complete modern equipment, of course. Next. Okay, you have to have a fully digitalized praxis, of course, otherwise you can't do this. You have to be acquainted with the internet, of course, not just records, writing, internet-based. You have to have sufficient personnel, of course. You need a lot of nurses to do this and doctors. And of course, you have to have all the facilities for handicapped people. Then you have to fulfill should have criteria, have to have a certain number of patients, otherwise this won't work. We have sometimes a positive list, so we have rankings of of drugs in therapies. I will show you how this works. And you have to have the possibility to have lumbar punctures, infusions, observation rooms, and so on. And all of our centers are conducting clinical trials, RRCs. So you can see they are organized. You know, we are very organized. If you look at doctors, that's not also the fact. And I can say this because I'm a doctor. Then you have to perform MRI within 1 to 2 days. You have everything, you can read this. And you have to want to do this and be part of a team, you know. The doctors, they all have their little kingdoms. They don't want to have too much insights in their offices. All these people and all our members, stakeholders, we are putting all our data together and talking a lot about what we do and how we do therapy. Out of this, we did Destiny. Destiny, the thing we get the award from, data-based assisted therapy decision support system. You know, every doctor has his own knowledge, but this is the knowledge of 100,000 data. That's why we decided to do this. The idea is a personalized medicine, away from the gut feeling. If you are lucky, you go to a doctor and he knows everything, he knows all the studies and he has all the experiences, but maybe he didn't sleep well and whatever. So there are assisting systems like ours that you can trust more what the doctor says. We want to go away from a shotgun, you know, try and error. We have maybe MS, we try one drug. 3 months later you come, it doesn't work, and so on and so on. We would like to have a marksman shot from the beginning. How can we do this? You have to have assisting systems using evidence-based real-world data. And that's what this is all about. How does it work? This, I think, this makes you dizzy. That's our system. It's a system, unfortunately, it doesn't work with the laser pointer. But in the middle, that's crucial. In the middle is the patient. It's not the doctor. We are all doing these things for the patients, not for the doctors. If it's convenient for the doctors, it's okay. But in the end, we have to treat patients. So who is feeding the data? 20% is a doctor, about 70% are specially trained nurses. We have data nurses trained in our own system, and 10% is done by the patient itself. How can he do it? He can do it in the waiting room, he can do via tablets or his smartphone, but he also can do this from at home. It doesn't have to be in our office. Then these data are checked and going in our registry. But not just our data are going in the registry, also other registry can have interfaces into our registry to pool data, because that's true. The more data you have, the more the accuracy of what you can do with the data. Then, out of this data, we have modules helping the doctor making better decisions. We have FRIEND, this is a predictive modeling, I will show in a later slide, ongoing. Then we have therapy optimizing tool. Out of all this data, maybe the patient has 2 relapses in MS. He has worsening of MRI. He has worsening in quality of life. All these data are coming in, and if the doctor doesn't know, because the patient is not here, the system will get in the next day red flags. So the data nurse sees red flag, this patient is not doing well, call him or he has to come. That's therapy optimization. Then we have, of course, AA, adverse management. All our patients who have adverse and side effects are monitored. Then a big problem is you have 80% in Germany of the data are analog. So now you can go there and do this personalized. So a MS nurse or a doctor sitting there transferring data to your database. That's a lot of work and nobody will do this. So we have, in cooperation with PwC, we developed a tool that is doing this automatically. So it's like a scan machine, it's NLP, it's machine learning, and we get out the data in 80 to 90%, sometimes 95% regarding to lab data. So it can bring all the data from analog to digital. That's crucial. The other thing is, what else do we have? We have a lot. Then we have biomarkers. We have invented a biomarker that tells you in MS whether this patient will react to copaxone or interferons. That's, you do a lab test, after 4 days you know it. This is all for the doctors and the nurses. We have also in projects, not in the practice, automatic MRI analysis. You know, the discussion round said this about the radiologists. Now let's see, it's a problem for them because AI is very good in radiology, and we are having a project proving this. We have a project with 2 different providers and 3 radiologists, and we check who is better. And let's see. Then the patient, this is one part, to get all this data. All these data are checked, of course, before they go into the database. The other part is the patient. The patient is also feeding the database. For example, we have migraine apps, and this is filling the registry, but also he can see his data. So it's bidirectional. Not only the doctor and the nurses see, also the patient, if he wants to see his MRI data, his lymphocytes, his lab data, and so on. And via this channel, he also gets some information about his illness, about his medics. So it's bidirectional. That's very crucial. In this tool also is electronic patient card, a record where all your records, where all your MRI data, where all allergies and everything is in. So if you go to a doctor, this is all known, and the doctor who is referred to you knows everything. Out of this is Friend. Friend, this is our baby. Most sophisticated, this is a web-based tool. You know, we did a lot of research and a lot of publications about retrospective data. But this is a tool individualized. If a patient with MS comes, what can I give him? Individualized. This is, our register is the basis for this all. There is machine learning, deep learning, unsupervised learning, whatever. We are doing this with a team with 100 mathematicians, computer scientists, data analytics, web designers, user experienced persons, because it's not just building this up. People have to use this. So there has to be a kind of gamification of the whole feature. So this is a ranking for special patients in MS, and then you can choose out of real data what would be best for the patients. This is one. The other is the patient says, okay, that's all right, but I want to be pregnant. I want to have orals. I want to have whatever. And this is the preferences. So in the end, it's a talk between doctor and patients on the same level. You know, not I'm the doctor and you do what I do. It's together. That's a very new thing because doctors are not used to this. But I think especially in MS, the patients are young, you know, they are affine to internet. They come and say, probably have an MS, so you go to their level and talk to them with this. This is, we can over this, if the doctor wants to know why the predictive model was choosing this, the ranking, then you can look at this and you have the ratings. This all fulfills quality standards and certifications, you know, ethical improvements, quality risk management, it's CE certified. Privacy, you know, in Europe, privacy is top. If you don't follow the rules, then you're just, it's not possible. So this is very strict. We fulfill all these rules, GDPR, European. Then we did a lot of other awards, but I'm glad to have this one as well. Destiny is for doctors and for patients. Doctors, additional to the modules I showed you, has the opportunity to cockpit his own office. So in this case, for example, you can see I have 1,685 patients, 33% are female. Then you have the ages, then you can see on the bottom down, you can see, I see them, that's visit per year, 2.7 years, and you have a benchmark. You know, the benchmark is the darker one, all over our network. So you can see how do I perform compared to the whole group. This is a special clinical core. You can see how often do I MRI scanning compared to the others, how many sick leave days has my patient compared to others. So this is a thing that's very interesting for the patient, for the doctor in his own office. We also have a thing like, but that's very German, regress warning. You know, in Germany, if you do wrong things, then you have to pay back money. This is warning you if you're doing this, or if you are off-label use. If you have off-label use, this is warning you. Check the diagnosis or change diagnosis, or don't do it. The other thing we did a lot is retrospective analysis, match pair analysis. With propensity score matching, that might be boring if you're not in the field. I just go over this. In the end, we did a lot of publications, you know. It's a thing, it's also, if you're a pharmaceutical industry, it's interesting, you have to do these RCTs. Probably it's possible to compare also in a stadium that the drug is not licensed compared to real-world data. We did this, did a lot of publications. This is one in neurology. This is a completely new world. You can even do it as a study arm, placebo arm with real-world data. We have a program in Germany at the moment to prove concept. These are other RSCs that were for licensing drugs, and we could predict, just what shows this, we could predict the outcomes of the studies with our RWE data. That's also proof of concept of the power of real-world data. So for the patient, they have a lot of opportunities. They have apps, they have a therapy plan, they have, of course, a warning when they don't take their drugs, then there's a push. They have, this is migraine, they have a lot of information. If they want, they get push information. But the very important thing is the patient is in the pilot seat. He can say, I want to have this, I want to have this, I want to have even special information about my drug from the pharmaceutical industry, then he can get this. So he is in the driver's seat. And a lot of the problems you have with privacy is not a problem if the patient decides to have this on his own. That's, for example, the migraine app. You can see how many days did I have the last 7 years, last 7 days, last 6 months. How often was sick leave? How often was his hospitalization? So all these data, you know, there are a lot of apps around, but the problem is there are millions of data. You have to have one platform or have platforms that can connect and interface. Otherwise, all these data are useless. And for AI, you need a lot of data points, of course, but that's the problem, and that's why we are doing this. And not just in Germany, now we have a cooperation with Switzerland, and you can have different apps, of course, but the data have to be pooled somewhere, and of course, secure pooling. So what want we do in the end? We want to connect everybody, of course. We want to connect the doctors, the clinics. We want to have the caregivers, of course. They can fill in other things that the nurse don't have to do. The pharmacies, of course, retail pharmacies. And then you have the whole thing, and then you have a view over the patient, the great picture. And in our system, the patient decides what doctor can see all this information. So you can say the dentist, no, the GP, yes, the neurologist, yes, and he decides who is able to see this data. Benefits for patient and doctors. Patients, we talked a lot about this. It's tailored. This platform is tailored for the individual patient. It's tailored by MS nurses or other nurses and the doctor and the patient. It's bidirectional, so the patient is in the team. That's very interesting and very crucial, because if you see all the studies, if you see at empowerment of stopping therapies, it's always a problem when the patient is not on the level, not in the team. We have, of course, a visualization of all the data. The patient doesn't see Excel tables, so he's visualizing graphics and so on. And we have this information system. And we have, next year, we have also these consulting via web. This heißt, we can, if the patient doesn't have to come to the office, if he's doing well or has a problem now, I can't say come in 2 weeks and maybe I have time. No, then we have a special date where we do video monitoring, video consulting. That's new. We can do it in Germany now. Others do it longer before. For the doctor, it's an interaction. It's for the doctors, the patients love this. For the doctors, this is not easy because the doctors are living in a completely other world. To share with others is not on congresses yet, but for the working, you have to change and leave your comfort zone. But if you have tried it, it's much better. You have, of course, if you have this, you are a doctor of the new world. You know, we have dinos, of course. We can do it like we did it the last 50 years, but this is the way it will be done in the next years. So start now. We started. And it's also for the MS, for the nurses and the doctors. If you try and do it, you have more time to do really coaching with the patient, not just talking about what could be. And so you have this, the patient is in, and you have much more time for empathy and coaching. And this is far end. At the moment we have a project, you know, pharmaceutical industry has this idea, and it's a very good idea. Why should the payers pay for medics, for drugs that don't work? So at the moment you pay for the drugs if they work or not. With our system, because we have diagnosis, you have to make sure the diagnosis is okay. Then you monitor the patient, and we are doing this with our database. Then you can say with authorities, what is good working? Is it no relapses, no seizures, nothing? Or is it half compared to before? Then you get 50% or 90%. Or if a patient is symptom-free after 1 year, after 2 years, you get 100% or 120%. This is done also with PwC, and we are starting this up with BGA in Germany. Then you do smart contracts on these data points, and then it automatically gets to the health insurance company, and then it's going back after checking to the pharmaceutical industry, and they get paid. I think that's the new model that, not now, maybe in the next 5 years, this will be done. So, and that is not just for neurology, of course. The system works in every field. So we are doing this with PwC, Pricewaterhouse and Coopers. Otherwise, we couldn't do this. You know, we are doctors, we have good ideas, we have visions, illusions, whatever. Sometimes we get grounded by the AI team. But in the end, this is very fruitful. We meet every month for 1 day, mostly 2 days, and do brainstorming, and out of this team, this comes. And this, of course, can be done everywhere, not just in Germany. But you need, of course, then dermatologists or others, or neurologists, wherever. And we can, of course, do the coaching because we have 11 years of experience with the doctors and with the system. And this is crucial. It's from doctors for doctors. That's a difference. If pharmaceutical industry is doing this, they have all the knowledge, you know, but then they decide after 2 years we are going out of the field. MS, that was good, but now we are doing hypertension, whatever. Then the whole thing is not usable anymore. So we think systems like this have to be neutral in doctor's hand and with no bias from outside, because you can imagine if in our ranking of predictive modeling, if there, for example, Roche or Novartis is always on the top ranking, then we have a problem. So we don't want to have this bias. I'm done. Yeah, thank you. Open for questions.
All the way you were mentioning patients and doctors, but how about hospitals and clinics? For example, we visit a hospital, he give us some prescriptions to do or test or diagnoses, and then when you go to another doctor in another hospital, they will say we will start it over. So that's, I think it's a revenue model for the hospital or clinic. So with your application, you are like deleting some of this revenue model for the hospitals. So they how responded. The other question, is this application can be downloaded on the artificial intelligent robots, for example, like Sophia. Now she started to develop in America, in Harvard University. They started to prepare robots to take care of elder people in home, as home care, to give them the prescriptions, the medicine, and the all medication in time. So this application data, it can be transferred to this AI robots. Thank you.
First was the connection to clinics and ambulances. This is done by the right side I showed you. This is the electronic patient record. We are doing all these things in medication plans, MRIs, records. This is done by the patient, by the ambulance, or by the doctors in our network. The second was of course, it's transferable. Yeah, you know, the problem is now digitalization is all over. So everybody is doing with funding or whatever his own platform. That's nice, but in the end, we need. You can do different platforms, but you have to have interfaces that you can communicate. So I don't know this exactly, I know others in Europe. And we are communicating. All these you see, the three we have, these are platforms from outside. So then you have to define the fields and that you can communicate. We would be glad to communicate with others, but we don't even know all the others. So this is a good stage for me to show you what we have. Maybe there are other platforms outside and we can connect together, do things together. Because we did this, maybe you have much better ideas, or you say, okay, this is good, but we have better ones.
So, just want to know, this app and this application talks about the medication and the effect of medication, as well as the diagnostics which the doctor is doing on the patients. What about the environment in which the patient is living? Does it capture, because the environment in which the patient is living drastically affects the health of the patient, the medication he is taking, the impact of the medication? How do you take care of that?
You think is smoking, is he vegan, what is he eating, what is his family status, and things like that? Yeah. That's all in. That's all in, and this is, for example, the MS module has 274 different items. One is gender, of course, then state, marriage, divorced, because of the illness, and whatever. We catch this up, to get the whole picture.
Hi, Dr. Bergmann, over here. Hi. Sorry, I just wanted to ask you, so your module friend, it looks at, predictive diagnostic decision making. As a doctor, a lot of the decisions that you make is based on data published in recognizable, journals or in databases such as, for example, Cochrane database. So how would Destiny, as a doctor, how would you know the predictive decision making? Yeah. How would you know which data it's using to make those decisions, so that you can then be more conscious about, the weightage of the decision?
All Cochrane, for example, all the others, or if you go to studies, you use RCT data. That's you know, RCTs are 1 year, maybe 2 years, very special clients. You has to have just MS or just epilepsy, nothing beyond. I think in the end, real-world data for 10 years, you know, but you have to make sure that the quality of real-world data is top. If you can promise this, then I think that the real-world data in the long run say much more for the patient in the long run than RCTs. But at the moment we have cooperation with 2 major pharmaceutical companies giving us all their RCTs. And then we can combine this and do this together.
Sorry, from what I understand, it basically means that isn't there a risk then? So let me just clarify. So from my understanding, as a medical student, we're always taught that RCTs, which you see in databases such as Cochrane, are your highest hierarchy of evidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas with the AI system, from what you've mentioned, the data is actually coming from pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
Now, my issue with that would be, is there any funding bias then in the data that's being provided? Is there any unknown bias towards a particular diagnosis, which would mean that a certain pharmaceutical company can then be like, oh, I can push this drug more. So how do I know that this is not an unbiased way of coming up with a diagnosis as a doctor?
Because, why? Because we have a lot of, I couldn't go to this, we have a lot of query functions, we have a lot of quality checks in our database that make sure that the data are okay. So, and there is thinking also in Germany and the EMA that the real-world data are coming up and maybe not head-to-head with RCTs, but can be a part of the whole thing. I don't think that these data substitute RCTs, not at all. But I think making these together, and we have projects with EMA and authorities, you can do it much better and much cheaper for the pharmaceutical industry.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was the end of this session.